Hey everyone, welcome to the Heme Consults orientation video. This is video number 7, answering the consult question. So I remember once as a fellow, I literally sat in one spot for like 3 hours answering pages. And one page would come in and then I would answer, and then the next page and the next page and the next page. And I didn't get up from that one spot. And at the end of the day, patients didn't get seen. And when the attending came, it was hard to explain why I hadn't seen anybody. And this is something that happens and it might happen to you. And I want to talk to you about how best to answer the consult question so that in a 7 consult day, God forbid a 15 consult day, you know what to do and how to best manage your time. Okay, so critical things to consider in answering the consult question. The first thing is that you want to make sure that your priority is actually to see the patient physically. Sometimes I'll have fellows sit in front of the computer just looking at the chart all day. The chart is great to help you get a sense of what's going on with the patient. But literally, if you take time to get the team to give you the information that's needed and get a sense of the story, and then talk to the patient, you'll have most of the information you need. Yes, the chart is helpful. It's there to assist you. It'll probably give you details about labs and medications that maybe the patient and the team might not be able to tell you. But really, you don't want the chart to get in the way of you going and evaluating the patient, because the patient is the most critical piece of the story and they help you think in a nuanced way about the problem. For example, a patient comes in with a new DVT while they're on therapeutic anticoagulation. Looking in the chart, you see the INR was 2.3. Clearly, this patient has failed warfarin. Of course, you need to transition the patient to a different anticoagulant. And then you go ask the patient, and the patient says, you know what, I was out of warfarin for 3 months. I just started taking it 2 days ago or 3 days ago, whatever it is. That's the nuanced piece of information that you get from the patient that the chart might not tell you. Or take another example. Once we went in to see a patient who dropped his hemoglobin significantly, and it wasn't very obvious. And we went in to see the patient and we saw his leg was big, red, and swollen. And there was concern that actually he may be bleeding into his leg. The physical exam was so helpful in knowing exactly what to do for the patient. So these are the kinds of things that are helpful. And that's why it's really critical that you see the patient. Don't spend all your time in front of the computer. That's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. Make sure you see the patient. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is to ask what additional information is needed. So by now you've asked the team, they've given you information. You've seen the patient, they've given you information. You're like, what else do we need to know to answer the question about this patient? And that's when you'll search the literature, you'll look at other prior patients, the way they've been treated, and come up with a diagnostic strategy for this patient so that you can move on to management, and make sure you reach out to the team even before you round with the attending to get some of these things moving. The next thing you want to do as you read through the chart is make sure you're also reading in between the lines. So sometimes things don't make sense in the medical record. Don't brush that away. Your curiosity may be one of the biggest and most important tools that you have. Make sure that you are asking, okay, I don't get why the hemoglobin was 6.7 and then all of a sudden it's 9.2. What happened in between? I don't see a record of a transfusion in the chart. And the team might tell you, oh, the nurse drew this blood from the line and she drew it again from a peripheral stick, and that's the difference. So make sure that you are engaging the team to answer any questions that you need to really help you fully answer the consult question. The other thing to do is as you're searching in the literature, a lot of benign hematology issues are actually rare. There are few patients that have been treated in this way. Even the things that are common, there are uncommon presentations of these common things like DVT-PE. Look in the literature and make sure you understand how patients have been treated. And if at the end of the day, all you have is case reports and case series, you do want to know exactly how patients have been treated. And this allows you to decide if you're going to go in a different direction based on information you have about the patient that's different from the population in the literature, or whether the population in the literature exactly fits your patient and it makes sense for us to follow exactly as the literature says. So that's important for you to make sure that not only are you reading things like Up to Date or whatever journals you're looking at, also see how patients have been treated in the past, looking at case reports and case series if there are no randomized controlled clinical trials. Okay. Now, one of the things that's helpful is to avoid task switching, because Task switching leaves you with attention residue. For example, you're completing a note, you're writing the assessment and plan, and you get a page and you leave the note to go answer the page. It turns out to be a heated conversation. You put down the phone, turn back to your note. You're too angry to write, and you're like, where was I again? What was I saying? Why did I start this sentence? It takes you a while to warm back up to get to the place that you were before you answer the page. So think about that, especially when you have Epic open and messages are coming from all sides, or maybe your phone keeps buzzing as you're getting text messages from your colleagues. Whatever you can do to maximize your attention and focus will help you move forward more efficiently. And sometimes that is by doing something like, okay, you get a page and you know there's a 10-minute window or 15-minute window that's a reasonable time frame in which to return the page. So what you do is as soon as the page comes in, resist the temptation to look at it and just set a timer. Say, I'm going to give myself 7 minutes to finish this thought. Then I'll take a look at the page. And that helps you. By the time you finally finish that thought and then go to the page, you might already have had 3 or 4 pages, and then you can address 3 or 4 pages at once, which is a little bit more efficient than every 2 to 3 minutes stopping what you're doing to address a page. So think about strategies that you can use personally to help you minimize task switching so that you minimize the attention residue that makes you slower. Okay. Now, one of the things and I've talked about this in a prior video, is make sure that you're contributing your highest value. So the team says, wow, we're not able to put the line in. Don't say, I'm a whiz with lines. I'm coming to help you. Yes, you're really great at lines, but you're not on the hematology consult service to be a master of putting in lines. Leave that to the team. They have their processes. They can figure it out. You focus on the work of hematology that really only you is focused on in the entire hospital. And if you're like, oh, I have all the time in the world, there have been no consults all morning, I have a free afternoon, don't do it. There's so much to read. There's so much to study. And you know what? Even if you don't want to study, just sit down and have a Zen moment. Eat a meal, drink water, just relax. Imagine how much more focused your mind will be when you finally do have something to do. But don't run around the hospital doing things that really are not specifically pertaining to your role as a hematology consults fellow. Really, really important to clarify that. Okay. Now, when you have synthesized all the data on the patient, you're getting ready to talk to the attending about the patient. You want to make sure that you have a solid management plan for the patient. Don't just be a data gatherer. Anybody can be a data gatherer. When you started out as a med student, you were just gathering data. Where you really need to be at this point is to be someone who gathers data, synthesizes it, and comes up with a plan of their own. It may be your first day on the consult service. You have no idea what you're saying, but do your best anyway and come up with a plan. Commit to a plan. You're a great internist. You're a great internal medicine doc, or maybe you're a med peds doc. You can figure out a plan. Even if you're wrong, it's okay. But definitely prepare a presentation that really outlines your plan, but make sure you have a plan. Okay, so I want to invite you to think about a strategy that will help you manage pages as they interrupt your train of thought. So maybe your strategy right now is as soon as the page comes in, you pick up your pager. How can you minimize the task switching and the attention residue that comes from always responding to the page immediately? Remember, you're no longer first call, and so no one's calling you about a patient who's hypotensive and needs to be evaluated by you this moment. Maybe the most urgent you might get is a call from the emergency department saying, we need to reverse this patient with andexanet alpha right now. You may get that call, or you may get the call from the OR that says, we need Novo 7. The patient is bleeding out like crazy. And that's okay. You still have 5 minutes. You still have 10 minutes. Think about how you can manage your time so that you are more efficient and you're not interrupted all the time. Imagine how awesome it would be to actually answer the consult question in a way that felt really true to you and felt like you really had done your homework in terms of figuring out how to best manage the patient, because you weren't bogged down by all the stuff that's happening around you in trying to manage the patient. I would love to see that. And I think you might too. I'll see you in the next video.